Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below.
Greetings once again, Pokemaniacs! Duuz-Diz-Din back again, with more of the Pokemon Adventures manga, where previously, as Henry is finally able to repair Melanie's Mr. Rhymes' cane, Melanie hands the Pokemon over to him as, well, she didn't really do right by the Pokemon, taking it away from its natural habitat and destroying its cane. In the process, Casey is able to find her Escupeta. Sonia calls them up, telling them about a statue depicting two Pokemon she found behind the Stow-on-Side mural, depicted alongside the two heroes. Meanwhile, Bade meets up with Opal as she is intent on her word of retiring and has chosen Bade as the new gym leader of the Balloonlia Stadium. So at this point, both Henry and Hop have earned the Ice Badge from Melanie, whereas Marnie ended up taking on her son, Gordy, for the Rock Badge. And as they travel to the next destination, it finally comes to Casey, the two people who took her Pokemon. And as you would have it, those same two people attack Sonia as she's on her way using a flying taxi to meet up with the others, causing it to crash land. She's rescued by Leon and Raihan, Raihan having met up with Pierce to discuss things about Chairman Rhodes. Leon and Raihan realize that Sonia was ambushed because of the camera that she was carrying, which he hands over to Pierce so he can investigate. Meanwhile, the two celebrities, as Casey calls them, well, they call themselves that, ambush Casey and the others, demanding a camera that they say is in their possession, only for Pierce to show up with said camera. What'll happen next? Join me as I find out, won't you? Alright, let us begin with Chapter 23, titled Unbending, Meet the Celebrities. Now, I also want you to know, and it won't be for a while, but I have been playing Violet specifically. I want to say Scarlet and Violet, but no, just Violet. And I've gotten pretty far in the game, and I'm having a blast with it despite a lot of the issues the game has. Like, oof, man, it needed that extra polish. It's not unplayable, it's still fun, but it's like, man, it could be so much more fun if it was just like, y'all needed to take like another year or so maybe to work out some of the kinks. That's why I'm glad they're not, hopefully not rushing Wind and Waves. But it'll be a while before I get that game anyway. You know, once I get done with Violet, I do maybe want to play Arceus and ZA. Maybe, we'll see. But I'm having a blast, all things considered. But naturally, because I always tend to lean in that direction, I've gotten a lot of Dark-type Pokemon. You know, big guess to what my starter was. And naturally, that's, moves in on the fact that Pierce is one of my favorite gym leaders out there because he's the only Dark-type gym leader. Like, even though I don't really care for Team Yell too much, I still got like a Team Yell outfit with like the spike gauntlets and the boots and stuff like that, and like a leather jacket and all that good stuff because it's like, that's just kind of my aesthetic in the actual world. Not that I always get to really put that on display, all things considered, but Pierce having a nice little part in the story, the big part of the story too. I actually gotta appreciate that. It's also because he's like one of the stronger gym leaders out there since he's so close to the end. But like he has some of my favorite Pokemon too. Obstagoon, yeah! Love Obstagoon. But let's get into it. Expose their identities. Pierce has arrived outside the RV, confronting the two celebrities, two Pokemon, one of which is one of my all-time favorites, Goliathpod, and the other one being what was his name again? Bronzong, there we go. With them observing through cameras on their Pokemon, Pierce tells the two, "Is this what you want them to give back by any chance?" One says, that camera! And Pierce just hands it over, saying, "Here you go." Much to Casey's astonishment, the two exit the RV, one saying, "How praiseworthy Spikemuth Gym Leader Pierce." The other says, "You know all know quite well how to behave towards the nobles. They laugh as they gallivant off. Farewell. And they're gone. Piers looks back to the others saying, good grief, are you all right? Only for Casey to shout, you idiot! You're a gym leader. How can you listen to what those criminals said? I still haven't gotten Mega and Giga back. She rants at Piers as Henry tries to hold her back. But Piers just smiles, questioning, you've got quite the shock and shout, don't you, Shield? I almost want to have you take over the vocals for my next song. Look here. As he brings up a small card, I kind of figured as much, saying, I snatched the memory card. Let's give it a look before they notice it's gone. Yeah, dark type. It's also kind of why I like Nanu, even though he wasn't a gym leader. He was the dark type kahuna and all that. Even though a Alolan Persian is not my bag, man. I like Alolan Meowth, which was why I was glad that Sun had one. But Alolan Meowth did some awesome stuff. But Alolan Persian just, not my thing, man. He hands it over saying, thought it might be damaged after taking all that electricity. He goes over to Magnolia saying, it's been a while, Professor Magnolia. I'd like to get a move on and prepare for a counterattack before they come back. Could you bring us the Spike Moth? Magnolia smiles saying, the hole in the ceiling and the door coming off are no real cause for concern, I'm sure. No problem. As you got Marvin just kind of freaking out in the background. As they get in, Pierce takes the passenger seat, saying, okay, may I take the passenger seat? Magnolia says, go ahead. He then calls back to Casey saying, Shield, let's get Mega and Giga and teach those guys a lesson. They take off. Back in the RV, Henry questions, the professor and Piers know each other. He mentioned something about vocals for a new song. Think he's a musician? But Marvin is the one to actually say something, saying, you don't know Sword? Spike Moth's burning. Spike Moth's calling. Spike Moth's not dead. Land of Moo Moo Milk and Combi. Land of Milk and Honey. The boy with the spike in his side. He's Galar's punk rocker pride and joy. A man of many masterpieces. I think Marvin's as much of a fan as I am. I would not have guessed Marvin was into punk rock. You know what? This is probably the most I have liked Marvin in this entire series. Henry questioned, what's a punk rocker? Henry. Then again, Henry would be the one not to know. Marvin says, punk rock is a part of this music genre called rock. Henry says, I don't really have any interest in music. Yeah, you don't seem like the type, buddy. He then asks, do you like his work, Marvin? Marvin holds up his phone saying, oh wait, an MP3 player? I'm sorry, what decade did this come out in? Like, excuse me? Excuse me, an MP3 player? Like, this should have been by the time this chapter came out, this should have been in the 2020s by now. Do people still have MP3 players? I mean, look, I'm old enough to have had one myself, but, like, in a world where everyone has phones, then again, he might legally acquire them, but even still, you can legally get them on your phone. Like, Marvin, okay, he brings up his MP3 player and says, I put his songs in my MP3 player and always listen to them. Then again, wait, does Marvin have a phone? I'm not sure. Because they still try to make the Pokédex an exclusive, but the Pokédex is nowadays an app, which I still have issues with that personally, but the whole Rotom phone thing is such a phenomenon. You know, it feels like with the more recent generations, you know, it's hard to make the Pokédex holder title feel more exclusive, you know? But Marvin explains, I got hooked after hearing my parents listening to him. Oh, it's a generational thing. And Marvin got cool parents. No wonder he's able to just gallivant off on his own. But he was on hiatus back then. I'm just a fan who learned about him through recordings and interviews. Henry questions, a hiatus? Was it because his gym leader work kept him busy? Marvin says, actually, there are a lot of legends or, well, scary rumors about him. Some say he let his Pokemon go wild during a concert, or that he poisoned his audience. Oh, please. Others say he attacked plain old civilians who weren't trainers with his Pokemon, or that he threatened them. Oh, that's a bunch of bunk. How dare you disrespect my man's name like that? Piers would never. How dare you? And Henry questions, they really let someone like that be a gym leader? Marvin says, well, there are regions where the leaders of evil organizations are gym leaders, or even members of the Elite Four. Okay, so news of that got out. This is, shoot, with the way the first story arc went, it's just like, ugh. And then how the Elite Four were originally, like, it's been a while, but that's still hard to shake off. And shoot, even when it came to X and Y with Malva, finding out about that is just kind of like, ugh. The Pokemon manga set a weird precedent for the rest of the series, and how some of that actually seeped into the actual game eventually is kind of like how, if you ever read the old Archie Sonic comics, some elements from the comics ended up happening in the games too, and it's just like, is it just that a series goes on for so long, certain ideas just kind of come there, or is it just where they kind of looking at what the printed page did, and we're just like, you know what, this isn't a bad idea, let's actually use this. But Casey did, wait, okay, that can't be Casey asking that, because it's in a very normal voice, so I think it might be Henry who asked, come to think of it, whatever happened to Sonia? Or maybe it's Magnolia asking that, with her asking Pierce, Sonia's safe, right? Pierce says, Ra and Leo called and said that they admitted her to a hospital in Hammerlock just to be safe. Most likely the pair from earlier were trying to break that camera, which is why they unleashed an electric attack that might have passed through the carriage and paralyzed the Corviknight carrying it. Magnolia pauses and thinks for a bit, turning to Pierce saying, thank you. Looks like you've helped us yet again. Pierce simply says, no need to thank me. Leo was the one who saved her this time after all, and all I did last time was take a shot at those sods. It was the chairman and Kabu who actually took care of things. Wait, what's he talking about? Chairman and Kabu? What's he talking about? Magnolia says, please don't be so humble. Your deliberate scandalous behavior was what caused an uproar and made the committee actually take action. Action on what? Am I not remembering something, or is this exclusive to the manga, I wonder? Piers then says, still, I have to wonder what Sunny saw. When we split up in Magnolia says, when we split up in Serchester, she'd said she was going to investigate why the two Pokemon's efforts were covered up in the legend. Pierce says, legend, huh? Kabu said something before about how neither Galar's citizens nor scholars seem interested in local legend. I just thought that was like him to say that, considering Hoen's major involvement with legendary Pokemon and all. Which is a good point. Like, it is something that I did kind of question in the games too, that something could be just so swept under the rug when so many other regions, a lot of their misunderstandings about legends just kind of came because it was so far in the distant past. Like, you even see the statue in the Diamond and Pearl storyline, which was of an amalgam of Dialga and Palkia, but with other regions who live so close with their legendary Pokemon. I mean, there are people who outright chase down Suicune and Ho-Oh and stuff like that, or legendary Pokemon who you can honestly encounter pretty easily sometimes, but some people just gotta stay away. But when it comes to the Galar region, Zacian and Zamazenta are so mysterious, and they don't really appear like that. Like, there's very fable nature to them. And even when it comes to the legendary Pokemon of the Crown Tundra, you wouldn't really encounter them that easily. Most people just would kind of stay away from those regions or those areas, and they're not very easy to traverse, at least with how a lot of them are set up. Magnolia says, fair. That's probably why there isn't much data around for budding researchers like Sonia and their investigation. The only person who's really given us advice or worked with us so far is Chairman Rose. So if she'd asked him first, oh dear, what should we do? Oh, I was wondering for a second what I was looking at, but it's like, oh, they're in front of the shutter for Spike Moth. Pierce says, oh, sorry. I'll have them hurry and open the shutter. The shutter opens and closes when they enter. Oh, they arrive all the way at the back near the gym as Pierce turns, saying, "Welcome to Spikemuth. This is my hometown." And Marvin starts marking out, saying, "This is Spikemuth? The holy land of Galar Punk," only for them to hear a shout saying, "No!" Henry heads back into the RV, banging on the door, saying, "Shield, are you okay?" Casey says, "The data on the memory card was corrupted." Ah, they got what they wanted in the end, huh? Bastards. "There was only one video file, but the audio and image are all broken up. I tried to restore them, but I'll play it." And in fact, a very corrupted video plays. You hear a slight bit of voice saying, "Why are the ruins modified in the way? Allegedly, will not. Ruth did. Would be more convenient not to. Those two Pokemon won't prevent. Our interests are in agreement. Moving like keep on. We who can't time." Yeah, that's not enough to go off of. You can kind of make out who are involved in the video. So I guess Sonia maybe met with them and tried to grill them on the subject. Henry's questions, "This is it?" Casey says, "This is it? I'd ran their voice prints and the voices here are the same as the two from earlier." Magnolia questions, "Have you got anything on who they were talking to?" Casey says, "They never got shown, and it looks like all there is just these two paddling on and on." Prattling on, yeah, that describes them to a T. Henry then says, "So, there are no clues." Casey says, "There are. Look, it's only for a second, but you can see the two of them. They're the same as the shadows I saw in the assembling world." Marvin looks in, questioning, "These are their heads?" yeah. Goofy all looking. Pierce questions, "They've got quite the hairstyles, huh? Bit rich coming from me, though." Oh, come on, Pierce. Your style is goofy, but it's more for the showmanship. Magnolia seems to adjust her glasses, seeing something, pointing to the picture saying, "Shield, zoom in and enhance the pattern on the wall." Casey says, "Roger." It's always weird when Casey's word balloon isn't jagged. It's like, she said that more calmly. That's weird. As she zooms in, which, I mean, look, that zoom and enhance thing doesn't actually work for most videos. You can only do so much. That's why the quality of a video matters so much on certain things. Casey says, "This is the best I can do. It kind of looks familiar." Magnolia says, "It does. It almost looks like Macrocosmos' logo." The two say, "Macrocosmos?" Pierce tells them, "Chairman Rose's company." Suddenly, Pierce gets a call. It's from one of the, Team Yell grunts, saying, "This is the gate lookout. A Goliath and Bronzong are approaching." Pierce tells them, "There they are. Let them through then." The two Pokemon come in with their owners speaking through them. One saying, "Spikemuth Gym Leader Piers, get out here." Piers on a nearby rooftop waves over saying, "Over here. Took you long enough to show up. Let me guess, you didn't notice the card was gone." They say, "Of course not. How could nobles such as ourselves even imagine that mere commoners would ridicule us so?" Piers says, "Well, the memory card was corrupted. We couldn't really gather much on your faces or what you said, so you can have it back." One says, "You expect us to believe you?" Piers says, "You don't? Well, of course you don't." And so, I guess a camera or something projects on a wall what they got out of the video recorder, the corrupted data, with the broken words on it being played through. The two then say, "I see." The other says, This much will not hinder our plans. Then we shall take our leave." But Casey calls out, "Not so fast! Give me back Mega and Giga!" One says, "We have no reason to be ordered around by a lowly commoner like you." With Casey shouting, "You said you'd give them back if we handed over the camera, didn't you?" The sword one says, "Why must we nobles keep promises with a lowly commoner?" The shield one says, "I haven't the foggiest." Casey gets enraged and brings out Rabu, telling it to use flame charge on the two. Easily managing to knock them over. The two then shout, "How foolish! Are you fine getting hit by your own Pokemon?" Wielding the two's Pokeballs. Casey shouts, "Why? You released Kilo, Peta, and Terra all in different places. Why won't you give back Giga and Mega?" Henry steps forward, saying, "I'd like to know too. Didn't he knock off the little communication things they had on their foreheads? How are they still talking through them? Unless they're close by. They wouldn't be so... Well, no, they'd have to be close by to be commanding their Pokemon. That's one of the number one rules we've had for the longest time. Because it doesn't seem like they're issuing commands through the little communication devices on their Pokemon's foreheads. Yet their Pokemon are doing so much. And Pokemon are very capable. But we've seen time and time again in the manga that a Pokemon who's too far from their owner can only do so much. They'd have to be close by to be issuing orders. Yeah, Henry steps forward saying, I'd like to know too. That and the reason you ran off with a rusted sword and rusted shield. A voice calls out from the darkness, why don't you tell us? Why you think we nobles would ever tell you commoners our noble reasons for our noble actions? As usual, yep, they were. Pierce says, understood. They're right behind you, Sword. A light turns on, and there they stand revealed. Swordward and Shieldbird, with their utterly stupid haircuts. Their yee-ass haircuts. Utterly ridiculous. Pierce says, I see. That's what you two look like. Seeing as you're the type to steal, kidnap, and put Sonny's life in danger, all with no shame or remorse. I wonder exactly what kind of scumbags you were. Either you really thought you were noble, or really. Shieldbird questioned, how did you know we were here? Henry says, it's simple. We didn't just let Shield attack you in a fit of rage. Our goal was to destroy the communication devices you stuck on Goliath's pot and Bronzong. Pierce says, and since you'd notice if the camera stopped working, we had to make the town dark. We projected the video so turning off the lights wouldn't seem so out of the blue. I was wondering about that. It's just like, why are you showing them this? But it was all a plan. I gotta say, this is a good-ass plan. Pierce says, wouldn't be able to hear you despite the broken speakers. Being able to hear you despite the broken speakers would reveal your location, wouldn't it? It was easy to find you two since you kept going on and on without even noticing. I've got good ears, you see. And they could tell from Casey saying the two kept prattling on and on because they just love to talk. They really do. As if I want to say anything. Pierce says, and there you have us lowly commoners. Use of our lowly wisdom. Is that enough for you? The two do their stupid laugh. As Shieldbird says, let us enlighten you in special consideration of your lowly wisdom. Swordward says, Henry Sword, Casey Shield. The reason is Zacian and Zamazenta's interest in you two. Most troublesome were Casey Shield's 5 Pokemon that battled the two. That was really quite terrible for our plans. That is why we needed to separate you. At the very least, we needed to steal Casey Shield's strength in battle until the dawn of our plans coming to fruition. Thus, these two must not yet be returned. Henry questions, what in the world are your plans? Casey says, who even are you guys? The two then says, it's only natural that such lowly commoners would know nothing of us two of noble birth. Thus our lineage will not be revealed simply through being seen, and we find no inconvenience in it being revealed regardless. The other says, when the time comes, everyone in Galar will come to know us as heroes, they say with a bow. But Casey shouts, enough! I don't care about nobles of their or plans of heroes. I'll take back Giga and Mega by force. Kilo, Peta, Teta. But suddenly, Casey just goes limp all of a sudden. Henry manages to grab her before she hits the ground, calling out to her. The two then speak up, saying, no, you've yet to remember all that happened in the slumbering well. You don't know why, or you too fainted, do you? The other says, oh, why, Casey Shield lost her memories. As something moves in to attack Henry. It looks like a double edge, which I should know from them, having fought with them. Doublade. I think they had one. Okay. Well, they've been revealed. What happens next? And next up, it is chapter 24. Titled Unbelievable, The Shocking Truth. Are they going after Leon and Sonia now? What is the pair's goal? As Henry is busy trying to wake up Casey, he doesn't notice Doublade trying to strike him from behind. As Henry says, Shield, hang in there. But Casey finally comes to her senses. Oh, just as Marnie and Hop are trying to get in with Marnie's Morabeko. Marnie saying, I knew it. Hop questions, what do you mean, you knew it, Marnie? You said we couldn't go near Spikemuth because it'd be like this. And Marnie tells him, quiet down for a second. Only for them to all hear the shout of Casey saying, look out, sword! Which really knocks the blade for a loop. Marnie turns to Hop saying, that voice was, Hop says, Shield, and Henry's in there too. Marnie questions, why are they in there? Come here, Challenger Hop, she says, racing around the backside, with Hop question, come here? Marnie says, there's a way through that only the townsfolk know about. Hop questions, Marnie? Marnie says, save it for later. Meanwhile, with Swordward and Shieldbird says, oh dearie, dearie, dear. Looks like the blade's lick wasn't enough. She's already come to her senses. Swordward says, give her another one. Ooh, only for Pierce's Obstagoon to step in. Heck yeah. Love me Obstagoon. You got a good chunk of my team right here now. Obstagoon and Goliath spot? Heck yeah. The twins say, what? As without even really saying anything, Pierce's Obstagoon goes after Swordward and Shieldbird, only for Marnie's voice to ring out, no, don't take it any further. And Obstagoon stops before, well, going for their necks. Yeah, Pierce, yeah! Love my boy Pierce, going for that savage days of the earlier manga. As Pierce sees his little sister, he says, Marnie, thanks for stopping me. Obviously shaken, Shield says, let's allow this for now. Swordward says, indeed, this has nary an effect on our plans after all. They bring out, I think it's Shieldbird's Clink Clank? I think Swordward had the Doublade, and Shieldbird has the Clink Clank. Yeah, I think that's it. They hop onto the Pokemon, say, with Shieldbird saying, do continue on with your gym challenge. As Swordward says, goodbye for now. They blast a hole through the shutter and make their way off, laughing all the way. Bunch of chuckleheads. Casey tries to follow, saying, wait, give back Giga and Mega. But then she passes out, with everyone just crowding around her to see if she's okay. Meanwhile, at the Pokemon Center, Casey shouts, I'm okay now, just a little dizzy. They're all sitting around a little table with Magnolia saying, the blade is said to drink people's life force. Pokedex entry. Casey says, I remember everything perfectly after that blade licked me. That was the same way at the Slumbering Weld. There was a bang and a bright light that I could hardly see. Sword collapsed first, then I got knocked out while I was rushing to him. I lost all my strength and couldn't stand up. After that, those two showed up and said, in the flashback, Shieldbird says, I can't believe they appeared for these commoners when we're the hero's kin. Swordward says, they're Pokemon. How dare they ridicule us so? According to our ancestors, these shabby sword and shield are proof of heroicness or something. In other words, what made Zacian and Zamazenta wasn't their own abilities, but the sword and shield. Oh, do they both have a double-blade? Shieldbird says, calling those lowly Pokemon heroes is a falsification if I've ever heard one. Swordward says, we shall take up this sword and shield and correct that false history. Celebrity. As they come back over to Casey, Swordward says, oh, dearie dear, dearie dear. Looks like this commoner is still conscious. Shieldbird says, Doublade, consume her life force until she forgets all about what's happened here. We had better take these Pokemon too. Yes. There'll be nothing but a hindrance otherwise. In present day, Hop says, and that happened near my hometown? Marvin then questions the hero's kin. Are those two descendants of the founding heroes who stopped the darkest day? Magnolia says, I wouldn't be surprised if such people existed, but I've never heard of or met one. What about you, Pierce? Pierce says, that's a no from me. And you, Sword? Henry says, no, I have no clue. In the Slumbering Weld, apparently there are a rusted sword and rusted shield. That's all I've heard from my father. Hop then questions, hey, Pierce, can I ask you something? Pierce says, what is it, Hop? Hop says, well, are you and Marnie? Marnie says, he's my bro. And Hop Pierce says, she's my talented younger sister. Everybody says, what? Casey says, why didn't you say anything? Oh, I think it's both Casey and Hop. But Marnie says, like you're any better, Hop. Pierce then says, a long time ago, there was a gym challenger who got ruthlessly bashed. A bunch of false rumors were spread from conjecture and baseless suspicion. And a bunch of brainless idiots fell for them, causing a huge ruckus outside of the stadiums and during matches. Oh, that happened to Sonya? I don't remember any of this. Ever since then, except for cases where one reveals information on their own, challengers' privacy has been strictly protected. My behavior's been especially unruly. So when I think of Marnie ever ending up in a situation like that, Marnie says, I told you I'd be fine. Pierce says, no, you don't get it. That person was sunny and mischievous and seemed strong too. So that only makes me more worried. Marvin then says, Pierce cares a lot about his younger sister. Better jot this down. Okay. See, I think in the games, it was only that Sonya ever just kind of lost her drive after she lost to Leon. But they're making like some really rough stuff happen to her. Dang. Good on the manga for always kind of taking it to that extra level, you know? Trying to actually make a bit of a statement along the way. With X and Y and how the dangers of being too far in the public eye was already a big thing. But, you know, that's actually been a more constant thing a lot of times. Even, was it Fire Red and Leaf Green? Where, you know, Red, he was trying to convince the people, like, I'm a Pokedex holder, I'm trying to do this, that, and the other. But that only ended up backfiring in the long run. Henry then questions, that aside, is Miss Sonya all right? Casey says, yeah. Won't those two self-righteous jerks target her? 'Cause she's witnessed their antics herself. Magnolia says she's got Leon with her, so I doubt they'll be quick to go after her. Hop says, wait, Sonya is that Sonya? I told you about her, didn't I? She was Lee's childhood friend and rival. Money says, yeah, the one who disappeared from town. Hop says, I see, so she came back and they met up. Casey says, huh? You've met her too? You've met her too, though, haven't you? Henry says, yeah, at the entrance to the mine. That's where we first met. Hop says, huh? So the lady who was back then was... And Pierce says, noisy kid, I see. Marvin thinks to himself, so he's fine with Miss Shields shouting, but not Hop. That's a good point. He only noted the noisiness when it was coming from Casey. Yet with Hop, he's just like, why are you so noisy? It's just like, Pierce, really? Double standard much. Meanwhile, at the hospital in Hammerlock, Sonya finally wakes up. Leon looms over her, saying, oh, thank goodness you're awake. With Sonya freaking out, saying, Leon. Leon says, don't push yourself too much. You don't have to get up. Professor Magnolia and Pierce told me the gist of things. You saw two guys with weird hairstyles meeting with someone else, which was why you got targeted. But what exactly was it that you saw? Sonya questions, Gran and Pierce? Leon says, they got attacked because those two guys were after your camera, but they apparently left after finding out that the data had been corrupted. Sonya says, then they might come for me next. Leon tells her, I won't let them. I'll stay here and protect you. Or that's what I'd like to say, but that must be rich coming from me when I've never bested you. Oh, wait, did I get the whole backstory wrong? Right, no. That was already talked about with Hop. That he never beat Sonya. God, I honestly can't remember a lot of the backstory from the game. Yeah, please correct me, because I knew that Sonya dropped out, but I thought it was because she wasn't really able to defeat Leon in the end, or he got the better of her ultimately, and maybe that shook her confidence. But I guess I always thought that she was never really able to beat him, even though previously that was stated that no, it was that he could never really beat her, which is why he kept training to be stronger and stronger. But then she dropped out of everything, and it's like, dang, but that's actually a very more realistic thing. Someone who seems so passionate about something ultimately stepping away from it as they kind of lose their confidence in what they were once actually really good at. Or maybe she just, even though she was good at battling, she didn't love it, you know? Man, that's a very complicated issue that I don't know. Either the games didn't highlight that enough, or I'm really just forgetting. Again, it has been a while since I played Sword and Shield, even though I just completed the DLC not too long ago. But I left that DLC on the table for a good while. But Sonya pats him on the shoulder saying, "What are you talking about? You're the undefeated champion." She then pauses and then says, "I'm sorry, Leon. I keep running away. Do you remember when I got endorsed for the gym challenge, all those rumors? I'm Professor Magnolia's granddaughter, and I was endorsed by Chairman Rose. The two of them were fellow researchers and developers of the Dynamax band, so people thought it might have been nepotism." That's actually a good point. Like, there have been so many other times when the child of a researcher did kind of compete, but the whole challenging gyms wasn't like the biggest things. And by the time you actually got to the league, it's like most people, you can go challenge the gym whenever you want. It's just that most people know that, no, gym leaders are usually fairly strong. But I could see how with the way gym challenges are in this game, in this region, yeah, it might be like, oh, they got endorsed, because you have to be endorsed in order to enter, and that's a real big thing. I mean, that's Hop's whole thing about not wanting people to know that he's his brother, because he has complicated feelings about that, and how Bade felt towards the main character. It's just like there's a lot going on there. Dang, you know what? Even the stuff in the game has a lot of actual depth that I just feel like the game didn't really do enough to flesh that out as it should have, at least from what I can remember. Leon says, "I remember. I thought, what am I then, since I can't beat her?" Yeah, right? That's imposter syndrome right there. Sonya says, "I didn't think much of it all either. I just thought people would acknowledge my battling skills and stop thinking I was cheating and that my matches were rigged if I kept on winning. But back then I challenged Turffield Stadium. I came up with all sorts of strategies and tactics, taught my team useful moves, and even switched some of them out, and still none of it worked at all. I was exhausted by the time I cleared the challenge. I thought, until I win in the Champion Cup, how long will all of this last? That was the first time I didn't enjoy a Pokemon battle." Yeah, see, yeah, it was kind of like what I was saying before. She lost her passion for it. So I wondered if you felt just as fed up as I did. That's when I went to watch one of your matches. This isn't a metaphor. I saw a brilliant shining light. You were completely different from the you who could never beat me back home. Even with the type disadvantages or after getting hit by super effective moves, you always seemed so happy. There were spectators who yelled at you to lose and called you a lousy trainer. You surprised both me and them when you smiled and waved back saying thanks." Leon says, "I think I probably mistook those for ordinary cheers." So you laugh, saying, "That makes sense." There's a really good lesson in this. I like this. Sonya says, "Still, it was amazing. You were having so much fun despite all the pressure that came with the gym challenge. And that made your matches fun for everyone watching too. I thought I was no match for you." Leon then questions, "But you still made it all the way to Sirchester, didn't you?" Sonya says, "Yeah, but I was nearing my limit. I did manage to win, but I wasn't having fun. There were times when I wanted to just lose and go back home. That's why when I lost that gym trainer battle back in Sirchester, I was relieved." There's an evaluation on Sonya saying brilliant, but a bit prone to giving up. Well, it'd be hard being Magnolia's grandchild. Oof. Sonya says, "After that match, Chairman Rose came to talk to me. He said that from then on, challengers and spectators would be able to participate in matches without worry. He promised it'd be the same for the Challenge Cup and Champion Cup too. I never noticed it myself, but apparently some people who came to cheer for me and some people who bashed me go into a pretty big fight." Oh, oof. Leon says, "For real?" Sonya says, "You didn't know?" Leon says, "I had no clue." Sonya tells him, "Apparently people from the league thought I was hurt and upset by my defeat, where gym leaders and other trainers like Nessa, who I'd met during the challenge, came to comfort me. Kabu came by a lot because he'd been through the same thing with the mass media when he was younger. He told me a lot of stories about back when he lived in Hoenn, his home region, and the most incredible stories he told me were about the legendary Pokémon there. I got completely absorbed in them. Then I had a thought. Couldn't think of it. Could Galar have legendary Pokemon too? See, again, this is like, was this featured in the game? Like the idea that Kabu from Hoenn, where you have the legends, like even in terms of the manga where the legends are big, but the legends of Kyogre and Groudon and even Rayquaza drives so much of the plot. It's understandable that Kabu would be like, hey, like these legendaries were a big thing in my region and my home and stuff like that. And the idea of that inspiring Sonia is very cool, which is why a lot of the stuff in the the DLC where somebody else kind of takes over when it comes to wanting to find these legendaries. It's just like, Sonia, you should be the one investigating these legendaries, you know? Whatever. When it comes to legends in Galar, the most that really comes to mind is the statue of the hero at the Budew drop-in. So I had a chat about it with Gran. Then I decided to shoot for a university so I could study Galar's legend. Leon says, so that's why you left Wedgehurst. Sonia says, yeah, I didn't have the heart to continue on being a trainer, so for more reasons than one, I wanted to distance myself from Pokemon battles in their entirety, which is a bit funny considering how I was the one who said Wedgehurst would become the strongest town in Galar. Leon says, wait, that catchphrase of yours? Sonia says, yeah, do you not like it? Sonia says, honestly, I didn't want to hear it again. Leon says, now though, I don't really use it the same way as back then. I don't just mean it in the sense that having more strong trainers would make all of Galar strong. Sonia says, oh? Leon tells her, it's more about having the power to help people who need help. That's what'll make the whole Galar region stronger. Sonia takes this in and then pokes Leon in the face, saying, and you used to never think about anything other than Pokemon battles. I guess being champion for a while really makes you have a big heart, huh? Leon says, cut it out. I'm just really echoing Chairman Rose. He remembers Rose's words saying, I want to help make Galar as strong as it can be. Leon says, what brilliant words. If Galar becomes a place where the strong and the powerless and the disadvantaged can live without worry, Galar as a whole will become strong, won't it? But I borrowed those words as well. It's kind of hard to point out when Chairman Rose says some stuff that's kind of off, isn't it? I can bring myself to tell him that wasn't what I meant. But watching his ability to take action, I figured it might not be so bad to use it the way he took it, you know? But suddenly Sonia grabs his hand. Leon says, what's wrong, Sonia? Sonia, trembling, says, Chairman Rose has helped me too. I have a lot to thank him for. And I really do think he means it when he says and does things for the sake of improving Galar. That's why I just don't get it. The person who those two were meeting with was Chairman Rose. Leon says, what? Sonia tells him, and he's teamed up with them. They're all trying to bring back that disaster from the sky, the darkest day. Ooh, okay. Rose involved with Swordward and Shieldbert? Okay, thank you. Like, seriously, those two plots from the game, they needed to be one plot. Thank you. They needed to be one plot line because, look, that needed to be how this went down, in my personal opinion. Because these two things on their own, no, I hate it. I don't care for it. It's not the worst thing, but no, it's dumb. It's dumb. I needed more build up to it. The way it's being built up here in the manga, love it. When you find out that Chairman Rose is behind some dirty dealings and stuff, it's just kind of like, what? Because I didn't disagree with a lot of what Chairman Rose was doing in the game up until the finale, where it's just like, he just announces, oh, I'm doing all this evil stuff, or bad stuff, I should say, not so much evil. But it's like, wait, what? Wait, what? But finding out that it's all one big joint plan between Rose, Swordward, and Shieldbert, these, honestly, a trio of misguided dum-dums. In the long run, it's a trio of misguided people. I kind of like this. Like, having it go like this, it's not bad. I like this implication. I just need to see how this is executed. Alright, the last chapter we'll be looking at today is chapter 25, Rumble. A horrific darkest day. Everyone is in Spike Month gathered around Piers as he's on the phone with Leon. As he says, "Understood, Leo. I'll summon all the gym leaders." Oh, the summoning of the gym leaders. It looks like the gym challenge is on hold. We'll gather at Rose Tower. And he ends the call. Monty says, "Wait, bro." Hop says, "Yeah, what's gonna happen to our gym challenge?" Pierce tells him, "First off, I'm gonna find out whether Chairman Rose and those two are really trying to bring harm to the Gala region. If it's true, we'll stop them. The gym challenge is temporarily suspended until then." Hop questions, "Suspended?" Pierce tells him, "But that's just my opinion. Depending on the chairman's answer, after we have a talk, we may resume it, or we might end up canceling. In short, we don't know anything just yet." Henry then questions, "Could we go see the chairman too? If those two are involved, then for both me and S.H.I.E.L.D., it's hardly somebody else's problem, especially not for her. That, and I've made a promise to Raihan and Sonia too." Casey turns questioning, "Huh? What do you mean?" Henry says, well, it's not all that big of a deal, but Pierce questions, "I don't see a problem with it. As for Marnie and Hop, what'll you two do?" Marnie says, "The gym challenge isn't just about the gym leaders' performances, right? I want to participate in the discussion too." Hop says, "Me too." All right, the five of them head out, with Pierce saying, "Right then, why don't we all head to Rose Tower?" Heck yeah! I love it. I love Piers leading the charge. Oh, it's weird to see her outside of her uniform as we pick up at the Balloon Stadium with, I guess, Piers having talked to Opal, or maybe it was Leon, saying, "I see, Rose has... I understand." After she finishes the call, she calls out, "Bade. You're there, aren't you?" Bade comes around the corner saying, "I just happened to be passing by. I wasn't eavesdropping." Opal tells him, "Have you ever wondered what the man who played with your life was after? Now may be your chance to find out." As she suits up, she tells him, "Come with me. We're going to see it with our own eyes." And we cut over to Wyndon, where Hop is marking out, saying, "Ooh, Wyndon Stadium. I'll be back for you once I've conquered the gym challenge. Got that?" Hop, now's not the time, buddy. It to a certain degree, I guess it makes sense the way things are going. Because, honestly speaking, with the way the finale of the game kind of works out, is like, it never really made sense. With the way it goes down, it's just kind of like, no. No, that was not the way to go about it. But by intersecting the stuff with Swordbird, Shieldbird, and Rose is like, oh, this is much better integrated in the long run. Oh, thank God. No, honestly, it's just, at this point, the Crown Tundra and the Isle of Armor stuff that I'm like, okay, are we going to do that? Because I think I saw some covers that had them in Isle of Armor outfits. So, I wonder how that's going to all work out. But Henry says, "So, this is Macrocosmos's headquarters, Rose Tower." Casey, looking up at the tower, says, "Apparently it's got over 100 floors. I'm going to wreck my neck." They then call out Piers. Oh, it's all the other gym leaders. And this is the one region that has so many multiple gym leaders too. Piers is shocked, saying, "I don't believe it." He whispers over to Bade, "I haven't seen a mother and son reunion in quite a while." Bade says, "They did come here separately though." I love it. A voice then calls out, "Hey everyone!" Oh, or that might have been Milo. I feel like Milo would have said something like that. And Kabu comes up with Milo saying, "Is what you said about Chairman Rose true?" And Milo, wiping his face of sweat, says, "The darkest day is that thing on the geoglyph in my town, right?" Melanie then questions, "Where's Nessa?" Milo tells her she said she'd come after meeting up with Sonia, then headed off to Hammerlock. Gordy then questions, "Think they'll head here together with Leon and Ryan?" Bay then questions, "Then the only one missing is Opal, right?" Suddenly, there's a loud sound, taking everyone off guard. Alistair, only mentally, questions, "Was that blast just now from inside the tower?" with the only audible part being inside. Bay and Kabu are the first to rush in towards the stadium. Oh, seeing that Opal and Bade arrived and are currently taking on Oleana, with Bade questioning angrily, "Would you please get out of the way, Miss Oleana?" Still so polite, though so mad, with Oleana saying rather indifferently, "How many times must I repeat myself until you understand? Chairman Rose isn't here. Please leave. Opal, what are you after coming with him?" Opal simply says, "You shouldn't ask questions you won't believe the answer to." Oleana brandishes her Pokeball, saying, "You leave me no choice. I'll get rid of you by force." And she brings out all of her Pokemon. Salazzle, Milotic. Even though I just caught one, I'm forgetting what. Serena. It's because it sounds like an actual person's name. Frostlass and hiding in the back, Garbodor. And in comes Salazzle. The gym leaders brandish their own Pokemon. Kabu saying, "If that's the case," Mala says, "you're gonna have to take on," and Bay says, "all of us." Kabu brings out his Centiskorch. Bam! Gordy brings out his Colossal. Milo brings out his, I actually forget what the name of this Pokemon is. Milo's Appleton. There we go. Appleton. There we go. Appleton. Melanie brings out her, what was it? Not Daruma. Alright, Darmanitan. There's the name. And Brave brings out her Machamp. Hop, seeing the battle, states, "Oh, we've got to back them up too." Although Pierce just drags him along, saying, "No, we don't. What's the sense in wasting the diversion they've gone and made for us?" Alistair, only managing to get out the words "elevator, go up," tries to say, "The elevator is still working. Please go up while you have the chance." But as most of the challengers get onto the elevator, Pierce notices an attack incoming and manages to block it with his Malamar, right? I didn't remember him having a Malamar. Yeah, he did have a Malamar. Yeah, it shows my tunnel vision on his Obstagoon. As Marnie calls out to him, Pierce says, "Go, damn it, go!" As Bane manages to sneak in at the last second, too. Oh, that's nice. That's actually pretty cool. Pop says, Marnie says, "Your outfit." Well, Casey says, "That's Balloonlia's." And Bade says, "Shut up." He points to Henry, saying, "This is all your fault, Henry Sword. This is all because you went out to eat with the chairman. Actually, I wish I'd never met you lot at the mine entrance to begin with." Like, how does any of that add up, buddy? Hop then says, "Don't be daft. We're all gym challengers, so we would have all met each other anyways." With Casey questioning, "Yeah, more importantly, why are you wearing a fairy-type uniform?" Babe then mumbles out, as if that incomprehensible old woman beating fairy types into my head day and night isn't enough. I'm surrounded by pink, and every day I'm made to battle fairy-type Pokemon and take quizzes. I was endorsed by the chairman. I should have become the champion, but now I might end up as Bloomlia's gym leader instead." Everyone just smiles, Marnie saying, "Oh, that's great." With Hop questioning, "Amazing gym leader training, huh?" With even Casey saying, "Congrats. That's so great that Miss Opal took you in." Even Henry is like, "I'm happy for you too." Well, Bate is just fuming, saying, "That's the worst." With Henry then saying, "Huh? Then what do you want me to say?" Bade turns away, saying, "Worry about that the rest of your life for all I care." But Marnie chimes in, saying, "Cut it out for a second. We've made it." As they reach the top, she says, "It's just like Miss Oleana said. The chairman isn't here." Suddenly, a projection of Chairman Rose appears on the wall of the tower, saying, "That's right. I'm not in Rose Tower. Truth be told, I'd wanted to wait until the day I'd had all of Gala's attention in the Champion Cup finals, but carelessness has forced me to push up the date." Which, honestly speaking, is for the best, because that moment I didn't really care for it in the game. For the darkest day, that is. Once I invoke the darkest day, you'll be able to take on the Challenge Cup and Champion Cup with peace of mind. Now, let's begin. A new heroic legend. And to protect all of Gala, 1,000 years into the future, suddenly a beam of light comes shooting out of the how do I pronounce that again? Wenden Stadium. And even right behind the kids in the tower, both shoot up into the sky. Casey, seeing this, shouts, "Red lights are popping up all over. They look like power spots light pillars." She brings out her tablet saying, "Based on their positions, they're coming from the stadiums in each town." Oh man, was that a thing in the games? I actually can't remember. Marnie, looking out, says, "Then that's Hammerlock. Look, sky's pitch black. Is the darkest day happening in Hammerlock?" Bade turns around saying, "I'm going back down. There's no sense in staying here." As they take the elevator all the way down, they see a Dynamax, Garbodor, and Machamp going at each other. As they encounter the gym leaders, Pierce questions, "Where's the chairman?" Casey tells him, "He really wasn't there, and he might have started the darkest day in Hammerlock." With Melanie questioning, "He what?" Oleana simply smiles, and she recalls her Pokemon saying, "Everyone return. Chairman Rose is in the energy plant beneath Hammerlock Stadium. Anyone can go in now. Why don't you all go together?" she says, waving them off. Bay then questions, "You mean you were buying time?" Oleana smiles, saying, "I was perfectly honest the whole time. You all just distrusted me and got unruly on your own." Melanie goes to shout, saying, "Listen, you!" But Opal stops her, questioning, "There's no point in quibbling over it here. Can't you hear it? The commotion outside?" Yeah, Gigantamax Pokemon are just everywhere. It is havoc. Like, that's the thing. In the games, the whole situation at Hammerlock with the, darkest day, yada, 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 it was a situation, but it wasn't like a catastrophe. This is a catastrophe. Gigantamax Pokemon left, right, and center, just everywhere, going crazy because even they're taken off guard by what's happening. Oh, it would be anarchy. If this happened in the games, I don't remember. But this, oh yeah, someone needs to go to jail for this. The mass property damage alone. I love that even a Corviknight is like Gigantamax or Dynamax, whichever it is. Like the taxi drivers are like, "Dude, what the heck?" Henry sees this, saying, "The black storms have appeared in Galar and giant Pokemon are running rampant, just like the legend." Mallow goes over to the taxi drivers and tells everyone, "All the Corviknight are scared, running off and Dynamaxing, so we can't use the taxis." Melanie looks over to the rail, saying, "And just look at the monorail." Oh, he's only able to get at "we can't." What Alistair means to say is, "We can't leave Wenden now." With Casey questioning, "How are we going to get to Hammerlock?" Suddenly, there's a loud sound. Oh, as Magnolia's RV comes bursting through underneath a bonsly. Or, it's a bonsly, right? Yeah, bonsly. She skids to a halt in front of the kids, saying, "Get in!" They shout, Professor. I don't know who all gets in the RV, but she tells them, "Buckle your seatbelts, grab on tight." And they go racing off underneath a Mudsdale. Casey asks, "What's going on, Professor?" With Magnolia saying, "I have no clue. But try to start up the car now's power spot search machine." As Casey brings it up, there's indicators all over. And she says, "They're everywhere!" With Henry saying, "Come to think of it, Gordy said there were power spots all over Hammerlock when Dracky Dynamax." Oh, right, Marvin's Pokemon. If the darkest day creates several power spots at once, then they might have been doing a kind of darkest day experiment or trial run back then. Casey, looking at her indicator, says, "Think there's anything on the news?" As the news comes up, the reporter says, "To their Pokeballs at once. We repeat, do not let your Pokemon outside. Return your released Pokemon to their Pokeballs at once." Oh yeah, it's I guess Chertaro's sister or cousin, saying, "Due to an unexplained outpouring of energy, Dynamaxing is happening outside of existing power spots, stadiums, and Pokemon dens. Disoriented Pokemon may go wild. No matter what, please do not let your Pokemon out of their Pokeballs." A reporter on the scene tells everyone to the cameraman, saying, "We're coming to you from Hammerlock Stadium. The black storm that appeared in the sky is still increasing in force. We believe that the number of power spots may be multiplying as a result." The cameraman drops his camera, saying, "Oh." The reporter questions, "Huh? What?" The cameraman says, just now, there was something in the storm. Well, it's here. As something pokes out of the storm above Hammerlock Stadium, we see none other than Eternatus coming racing down from on high. End of chapter. See, the plan as a whole makes a lot more sense the way it's been projected this way. And I can see all the flaws that are about to come up, at least most of it, what I think are going to happen with Chairman Rose working with Swordward and Shieldbert. It's like, yeah, I kind of get it. I get where a lot of this is going and how they're very misguided in what they think they should be doing. And how, honestly, the twins are pretty much using Chairman Rose and vice versa. And I kind of like how this is going out too, because honestly, from what I remember, Chairman Rose unleashes Eternatus, and everything only ever happens over Hammerlock. If Pokemon do Dynamax or Gigantamax out in the public and cause any issues or whatever, you don't really see it in the game from what I could remember. As far as I could remember, it's not that big of an issue. But it's just kind of like, yeah, there would be a lot of chaos because Eternatus is still looming over Hammerlock, and it would freak a lot of people out. Not to mention because he interrupts the finale of the whole championship. But with the manga, how it's kind of portrayed, it's not like Casey or Henry were that into the competition to begin with. It was mostly about getting Casey's Pokemon back. That was the biggest thing. And for Henry, kind of retrieving the Rusted Sword and Rusted Shield. Like, there's a little bit of something in it for everybody for the most part. Although I do appreciate Hop in a very kid-like fashion being like, what about the championship? Like, yeah, it's such a big thing, but we got bigger fish to fry here, buddy. Marvin has been a great character to a certain extent, but I am still kind of bummed, mostly because, he has my favorite starter of the game, and so it all depends on if that fully evolves by the end of things. And it's like, even if it does, it's like, I don't know how much action it'll really have. So that's my only bit of an issue. It's just like, but then again, between Hop's screen time and Marvin's screen time, honestly, I kind of wish you had almost combined the two of them into one being. Because then as a whole, they would have had a great amount of screen time. Especially because we're kind of ignoring a lot of Hop's character, even though they did do a little bit of something with it and pointed out some of Hop's own insecurities and issues and stuff. But now that the darkest day is happening, everything's kind of been sidetracked to a certain extent. I am kind of interested where everything is going to go from here on out, though. Like, what other changes are going to be made? How do we factor in the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra? I would assume that the Gigantamax or Dynamaxing Pokemon all across Galar is a good way of having the gym leaders doing something, because this is gym leader duty. Rampaging Dynamax Pokemon are all over Galar. Y'all need to get out there and stop those things. Like, that is gym leader territory. Get to your towns, protect them as best you can. Well, Piers is kind of freed up because they don't have a power spot over there. But then again, now power spots are appearing all over Galar, so even in terms of that, that's now a bit of an issue. But fun stuff all around. I'm really enjoying how this is being portrayed. You don't really break anything too much because it's a manga instead of a game where you're kind of expecting certain things. You don't have to expect the same stuff, or stuff doesn't get as sidetracked as in the game, as it would in the game, I should say. So I think things are playing out pretty good, all things considered. It's just, I had such an issue with how things went down in the games. I'm like, that could have been better. And here we're kind of seeing it. Hindsight's 2020, But I guess that's about all I really have to say. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you in the next one. So then, take care. Bye-bye.